Hey, welcome back to Liam Locke Gaming. I'm Liam Locke, and we are again back in the Microsoft Flight Simulator X Steam Edition version of the Flight Simulator in our FedEx branded Boeing 747-800 aircraft. Today we are going to be flying from Miami International Airport, sometimes called Wilcox Field, to A&R Robinson International Airport in Trinidad and Tobago, specifically on the island of Tobago. Today's flight is my first flight in the freighter aircraft, so things are just slightly different, not a whole lot. And I'm doing things a little bit differently here today. As I mentioned in my last video, we did get the cloud flicker issue taken care of, so it is so nice not to have the clouds flashing at us. But beyond that, this is also a slightly different variation of the Miami International Airport, since I am flying a FedEx branded freight mission today. And we've got our FedEx facility back here. The person who put together this version of the airport did a really nice job with the graphics. Notice the branding on the building. All of our GSX ground vehicles are branded FedEx. And one of my favorite parts, actually, if you look back here behind the building, the tractor trailers parked out back with all the FedEx logos on it. I think that's just an incredible touch of realism. So it's early in the morning. Today's flight from Miami to Tobago is going to be departing Miami International at 8:10 in the morning, local time. And we are scheduled to arrive in Tobago about 12:35 in the afternoon, so a little over of a 3-hour flight. We're going to get there a lot sooner than that because we're going to speed this flight along. But we're going to go ahead and do the cold and dark startup, and we're flying a freight mission today because my buddy Jason, apparently he's discovered himself a curved monitor. He's got like this 35-40 inch curved monitor. He liked it so much he's ordered monitors for his entire family and all his friends down in Trinidad and Tobago. So we're going to load them up on this 747 and we're going to fly them down there for him. At least that's the plan, and that's what I'm going to stick to. So we'll go ahead and get started here. Now, first thing, GSX is already set up and ready to go. Interesting little touch with the stairs up to the aircraft, since this is a freighter plane as opposed to the typical stairs that get placed against the aircraft when you've got a passenger plane. But one thing I want to show you that I just recently discovered is even when the plane's in cold and dark state, you can take control of the CDU so that you can open up and manipulate doors and control ground services if you had to, before you even turn the battery or any power onto the aircraft. So the first thing I want to do is we're going to pretend this is the grounds crew. Basically, they're going to go up the stairs and they're going to open up the door to the aircraft before the pilots have arrived. So technically, I haven't even arrived to the airplane yet. So ground services is going to do their thing, but in order for us to kind of simulate that, we can hop in the cockpit and we can look down here to the CDU and notice that everything is black, right? So everything's off. The battery's not even on. If we look up here, right, no battery, no external power is turned on, so the aircraft's completely turned off. But we can go down to the CDU here and we can press and hold the menu button, and that will activate this CDU so we can control the doors. So then we can go to FS Actions, we can go to Doors, and now we can go ahead and open up this outside door. So grounds crew has done their job, they've opened up the door, and now we are going to call myself or the pilots to the aircraft using GSX. And we'll just do request boarding. And request boarding is going to bring everybody to life. The various cargo support vehicles are going to move into position. They're going to start chirping at us to open up the various cargo bay doors. And this is also going to trigger the shuttle bus that brings the pilots to the aircraft. One thing I really like about GSX is this is my first time actually customizing the placement of all the individual support vehicles. They used to come out of buildings and they'd be running over each other. You can actually go in and position them at each of the parking gates to put them exactly where you want them, so there's a more natural flow to the way the vehicles move around the aircraft. Again, I like that added touch of realism when playing this game. So our cargo trains are going to run off here and pick up the cargo for this particular aircraft. All those curved monitors for Jason. The GSX is already chirping at us. It wants us to open the door. However, the pilots are not here yet. If we go down to the stairs of the aircraft, I'm going to drop down there. We can look around. There should be a shuttle bus on the way to us. In fact, there it is right there. And on that shuttle bus is going to be the pilots for this particular flight. Now, don't make fun of me. I didn't create this animation, but tell me if you think these pilots walk a little bit funny. Just something funny about the way they walk. It just looks a little stiff to me. But nonetheless, here come the pilots on board. Captain and first officer. We're going to let them go ahead and get on the plane. And once they're up there, we'll go ahead and get the doors open for the cargo crew. So, beautiful morning here in Miami. As I said, today's departure out of Miami is leaving at 8:10 local time, scheduled to arrive in Trinidad at 12:43 local time. Some interesting facts about the Miami International Airport, if you were curious. It apparently is the third busiest airport in the United States. I did not know that. And last year in 2019, they served just under 46 million passengers, which apparently was an airport record. Interesting little statistic there. And last of all, for the state of Florida, the Miami International Airport apparently is the busiest cargo airport, the busiest airport for cargo traffic. All right, so the pilots are up on board, so now we can go up and make our change to open up the door for ground services. So they're waiting for us to open up the side cargo door. So we'll do that. We'll jump back out here, and you can start to see that side cargo door opening up. And just in time, because here comes the cargo off of the cargo trains making their way to the aircraft. That is a lot of curved monitors. Jason, I don't know what you're going to do with all these curved monitors, but I hope you save one for me. We're going to let them get going, and we are going to start up the aircraft. So pilots are on board. We're going to bring up our checklist. We'll still work off the checklist, but I'm not going to cover all of the individual steps that I'm going to do to start up the aircraft today. So first order of business, go ahead and get our battery turned on. And basically we're just going to run down the panel here and make sure that the buttons are in the expected proper positions. This is all covered in the FCOM for startup of the 747-800. I'm not going to turn on any of the hydraulic pumps quite yet. I am going to turn on the floodlights over some of the instrument panels. It's a little early in the morning, so it's just a little bit of shadows in the aircraft. I typically turn these up to about 10 o'clock. Obviously adjust them to your liking. That's pretty good. Do a quick spot check of the fire system. It's all good. Get our emergency lights here active. Everything else is off. Looks good. We won't be carrying that much fuel today to fly down to Tobago, so we're going to turn off the cross feeds for 1 and 4. I'm not turning on my fuel pumps yet. We are going to turn on the window heat. Windshield wipers are off, that's good. We don't need any lights yet, but we do need the nav lights on just to let folks know outside that we're on board the aircraft. Everything here is normal. Controls here are slightly different for the environmentals on a cargo plane than they are on a passenger plane. We can go ahead and do this pack reset, just clear that air. And I'm not turning on the packs yet because I'm using the outside air conditioning unit to basically condition the aircraft, and the APU is not currently on, or the engines, so I don't have any bleed pressure. So we're going to skip that for now. We'll jump down here, back to the captain's seat, just confirm alternate flaps in off position. All these other various controls are off. We can go ahead and put that's actually the first officer's job. I don't care. We'll leave it at RTO. It's good to go. Yep. Now we're going to come back and we're going to walk through this checks in a little bit more order. Let me just go spot check my checklist here. Since we've got power and outside power, we'll go ahead and get the IRS, the individual IRUs turned on. Go back down to our ECAS page here. Now, in this flight, I am flying with failures. I have turned the failures on. So one failure at a time, approximately every 10 hours. I've already had one failure, at least I think it was a failure, occur on one of my last flights where I had to replace the brakes and the tires. I would have expected just one to go bad, but it was really weird. Something happened and I had to replace them all. So I'm not sure if we'll get a failure this flight or not. We want to take a look at oxygen. Oxygen pressure looks to be pretty much where I normally would see it, so 1840, 1830. Hydraulic quantity, good across the board. Last thing we want to take a look at is our engine oil. So engine oil looks to be good. Everything's in the white, so no problems there. At this point, I have noticed, I have annotated in my checklist that we want to call for fuel service. I'm going to go ahead and bring up the GSX menu, and we're going to skip that step because loading is already in progress, so the fuel truck's not going to come while we're loading, because you typically would execute these in the order that they're presented here. So we would have deboarded passengers or cargo, requested catering, this is not a passenger flight, and then requested refueling. So we're already at the loading progress. We're just going to go straight to the CDU and go ahead and set up our payload and fuel. So for today's flight, we can take a look at our flight plan. So here on our flight plan, we are going to be taking on block fuel of 40.1, 40.2 metric tons of fuel, 40,188 kilograms. So we will drop that in. And that puts us at about, just, you can see on this display there, 22.2% of our maximum capacity for fuel. And from here we can go out and take a look at our payload as well. That's currently being loaded for us. Back on the fuel plan, or back on the flight plan I should say, we can see we have no passengers and cargo of 65.3 metric tons. The way we enter that is we're going to use this zero fuel weight, so we're going to put in 285.4 for zero fuel weight. Now that auto adjusts everything in the cargo compartment, so we have a balanced aircraft. Gives us 66.6% load level for the aircraft, so fair amount of monitors adjacent. We're pretty heavy. I guess we're actually not that heavy. We could be heavier. Go back here to the main screen. So you can see here on the payload, we put in the 285.4 for 0 fuel weight. It balanced our cargo out for us automatically. And before we start doing the FMC, we'll just take a quick look up overhead, make sure that all of our guards are closed. So no changes typically made up here. Everything appears to be in order. Now we'll go back down to the CDU and start our flight management computer programming. One thing, we already have a warning on the screen talking about the nav data is out of date. That's expected. I think we're just one revision out of date. Not a big deal. We'll go ahead and clear that out. And now we'll enter in our IRS, our inertial reference system position. I like to just verify the clock, so if we go back to the status page on the ECAS, we can see Zulu time right now is 12:28. We have 12:28 Zulu over here, so we'll go ahead and grab that GPS position. It puts it down here in the scratch pad. We'll go ahead and plug that in. That brings our navigation display and primary flight displays to life. Now we are ready to work on our route. Oh, let me go back one more thing. Back to menu. FMC. Back to index. Inner reference index. IDAM. Position. Yes. We did this one here. I forgot to put in. Oh, look, it already put it in for us. The KMI airport. That's what I was going back to just verify. It looks like it picked it up automatically, so that's kind of cool. Now we'll go to route and put in our departure airport or origin. We're heading to Trinidad and Tobago, the Tobago Island. So that's TTCP. Flight number is going to be 4173. Now, I want to do a company route, only because I don't want to sit here and program in all of my VIA waypoints, my VIA routes, and my waypoints. So we should be able to load a company route, which I previously saved, by hitting the route select here. Now, this happened to me last time, and I think I've got this figured out now. So we've got one error basically indicating that data link is not ready, and we need to do this ACARS login. So we should be able to do that by going to the center console, the center pedestal. So we'll drop down here to the center pedestal. We've got our center radio. We'll go ahead and activate that. Looks like that's our data connection. I'm not sure if that's related to this system right here, but this is the procedure that I followed the last time that I did this. So, don't quote me on this. But we do have to go in here to our data link. And this is our ACARS main menu. Go into pre-flight and go back to our previous page information here. So page 1 of 2. Put in some details in this flight in order to log into ACARS. So we'll put in our origin airport again. And one thing you can't do, I started to use the keyboard to make entries here. You actually have to use the button controls on this particular CDU. So our origin station, Miami, our destination. And our estimated time of departure in Zulu is 13:10. That's already entered. Our estimated time en route is going to be 3 hours and 5 minutes. And with that information, I tried the airline ID for FDX. It didn't accept it. It gives an invalid entry. I'm not sure what goes in here, but you don't need it, is what I'm trying to say. We've got this data link connect. Go ahead and click on that. you'll get this data link sync issue that starts to occur. There's nothing to do at this point. It runs its course, it looks like. The grounds crew is also letting us know via GSX that they have finished their work outside, so the plane appears to be fully loaded. They've backed away from the aircraft, and now they want us to go ahead and close our cargo doors. We'll go back, take care of that for them. And we can close them individually, or we could just click close all. Nice handy little feature. Got a KM down here in the scratch pad, we'll clear that out. All the doors are now closing. We'll go back to the center pedestal here. And looks like we've got now this D-Link is now active. That's what I'm taking ACT to mean. So if we go back up and look at our FMC, we were on right here. Remember we had the error about logging in ACARS. That error is now gone. And we have this particular flight plan selected, which is our Miami to Trinidad and Tobago. And that is correct, matches our flight number. So we'll go ahead and request this. You get request sending, and that'll take just a few moments to load up. And now you'll get this route uplink information. Route 1 uplink is ready. We'll go ahead and click load. The runway just populated from the save this flight plan. We're actually going to be changing that, which is not a big deal. Looks like it's still loading up. We should have confirmation once this company route populates. Now we've got performance init uplink. We go over to init reference here. Performance init data accept. We'll go ahead and just accept it for the time being. We may have to change this, but so far it looks okay. Good. Go back to route. Let's look at our legs. Okay, here we go. So we do have our route loaded. You can see that it's got us on runway 8 left, and it's got all the proper programming for our SID to our first transition waypoint of skips. We can kind of verify that if we go into departure arrival from Miami. Currently selected is 8 left. Now we're going to change that because I discovered that 8 right is actually a wider runway. 8 left is a little more narrow. So since we're flying in the 747-800, one of the largest aircrafts, one of the larger aircrafts, I want to change this to 8 right. And we're going to stick with the same SID, which is skips 2, which will take us to the skips waypoint. So that looks good. No need to make any changes there. And that should update our flight information. So now we can go back to legs. And not a whole lot has changed here because we're just on the same direction for the runway, just the right runway as opposed to the left. So that looks good. You can see up here on the navigation display, a little hard to read, but it does say 8 right. We'll check our arrival information as well. So into Tobago, we are using ILS approach Z for runway 11. Now in FSX, the original airport definition for Trinidad and Tobago actually doesn't have an ILS defined. So even though our let me just get my note here, give you the proper reference. So even though our AIRAC configuration, which is just one version off, and AIRAC is our aeronautical information regulation and control data, indicates that runway 11 and Tobago actually has an ILS approach, it is not active for us. So we will have to manually fly down to the runway and put the plane on the ground. Not a big deal. We should be able to pull it off fairly easily. So we'll quickly scan our flight, and the way we can do that is use the EFIS panel here and put our navigation display into plan mode. So here we get a little bit of visibility of what our flight is going to look like departing out of Miami. These waypoints here are a little close together. Let me just back out a little bit here. So 8 right, taking off, going up to 520 feet, and then heading for our first waypoint of VKZ, and we can start to step through this. And basically we're going to head off in an easterly direction. I'm just skipping right through these waypoints. We'll turn a little more southerly as we head down towards Trinidad and Tobago. Now we're looking for any disconnects in the flight plan, and the line is blue right now because we haven't activated our flight plan yet. So Perga to CI-11, that is correct. CI-11 is our initial approach fix. For the last few waypoints, Nortel, or Notel, it looks like, is where we'll start our descent to the runway. So everything looks to be pretty much in order, pretty much exactly as I had previously saved it. So that saves us a ton of time. From here, we'll go back to our map mode, and we will now activate this flight plan. Activate, and as soon as we activate it, it's going to go purple. So now we have a solid purple line. Get this wind data uplink. I didn't have any wind data before. I need to go to... Here it is. So FMC COM, I don't do this all the time, and the upload is slightly different than I have experience with. So FMC COM, uplink wind data uplink ready. So I believe we're going to click there, and that's going to give us, I guess, some wind information, or it's going to pre-program some wind information. I don't know how accurate that's going to be. We are flying with Active Sky 2016. Wind data load. Let's see, wind data load. Let's see what it puts in. Request sent. So it put in some directional wind information. Again, I don't know how accurate that is. We're just going to accept it and hope for the best. And now we've got this forecast uplink ready. And I just saw that. Where was that? Forecast uplink. So we went to VNav, descent forecast uplink ready. We're going to go ahead and load that. So invalid forecast uplink. I'm good with that. I don't really need it. So Clear that message. We don't get a forecast, which is fine. I didn't expect there would be one, so maybe we'll just clear that the next time that pops up. We should be good to go here. Everything is loaded. Let me go back and take a look at my checklist. We've worked through the programming. We do need to go into our init reference and just verify we have proper settings here. We haven't set our thrust limit. Now, typically I would do a derated takeoff, and I plan on doing that today. But there's one other thing I wanted to kind of wing my way through. And what we need to do is we need to get a weather report. So with the Active Sky 2016, I'm going to go down here and turn on my radio. We're going to punch in 122.0. This is standard if you have Active Sky 2016.
Kilo Mike, India Alpha, airport information, India 1953, Zulu weather, wind 097 at 11, gusting to 21, visibility 10, sky condition, ceiling 5000, broken temperature 24, dew point 11, altimeter 3013, advise on initial contact that you have information, India Kilo Mike, India Alpha, airport information, India 1953, Zulu weather, wind 097 at 11, gusting to 21, visibility 10, sky condition, ceiling 5000, broken temperature 24, dew point 11, altimeter 3013, advise on initial contact that you have information, India Kilo Mike.
So we got weather information. What I was capturing there, so 97, wind out of 97 degrees at 11 knots, gusting to 21, visibility 10 miles. Looks like broken clouds at 5,000 feet. 24 degrees Celsius current temperature with the dew point of 11. That is incredibly warm for February 21st, but I guess I'm thinking more of my area than Miami. For Miami, that's probably completely normal. And altimeter 3013, so we have that information. One thing I really like about the 800, and I wish they had it in the 747-400, is you've got the electronic flight bag. Now this is new to me as well. So we're going to try and see if we can't get some performance information for this particular flight to help us set up the flight management computer. So we're going to go to performance, and from this page we're looking to get our takeoff performance. So I want to copy the data that's already been programmed into the flight management computer. So we just click this copy FMC data. That pre-populates some information like our airport, Miami, runway 8 right. A little hard to read that purple. It needs some additional information from us. So right now the runway conditions is dry. We just got the wind information, but in order to enter it, you can't use the keyboard. You need to turn on this show keyboard on the screen. So we're going to put in winds out of 97, so 97 degrees, put a slash in, and 11 for our knots, wind speed knots. Now looks like it didn't enter that. Let's go back to this, try that again. 97 slash 11. Now it should accept that, and basically to enter it, there's an enter button up here at the top. Enter. Looks like it accepted it, so we're good to go there. Outside air temperature with 23 degrees Celsius. QNH, which is our altimeter setting, 3013. 30. Don't forget the decimal. 30.13. Oh, hello. Gotta select the field too. I'm so used to typing things into a scratch pad. And we'll hit enter for there. Looks good. We're going to go flap config. So for flaps for takeoff, we're going to do flaps 10. Air conditioning will be on, and anti-ice will be off. From here, we can turn the keyboard off. And that should give entries in all the fields that it requires in order to give us a derated takeoff temperature. So now we can click the calculate button here. Missing one thing, thrust rating. takeoff. Yes, you got to set. So I didn't do a specific derated takeoff. I just want to know what should it be for takeoff. Now we can calculate it. It's going to do the math for us, which I think is great, and we can see that we have a derated takeoff temperature assignment of 62 degrees Celsius, and that's what we're going to put into the FMC. So all of that just to get to this information, which is great, and we can also see that it kind of gives us look at what our V1, our V-rotate, and our V2 speeds are going to be. Now, those may or may not be exact. You can jot them down. 639. I'm going to go back over to the flight management computer, and up here where we have our select, right, our derated takeoff temperature, we're going to put in 62. And that gives us our derated takeoff, 95.4% N1 for our flight today. That'll arm to climb 1 derated performance. With this information in place, we can go to takeoff, put in our flap setting of 10. We can see derated 62 degrees Celsius, derated takeoff. We need to call our center of gravity. That comes from the payload screen. We can just recall it here. 22, drop that back in. 8 right is correct. And here is our V1. And they match up exactly to what was calculated for us on the electronic flight flag. So this is perfect. We can just activate those on the primary flight display by clicking each of these right select keys. So now we are set there. Just spot checking my checklist. We do have some additional information. Oh, actually, I think I got called. I want to go back and just spot check performance data. So our zero fuel weight matches at 285.4. Yes, 285.4. Reserves of 12.3 is correct. The 12.3 now, I just want to show you this real quick. When I'm calculating reserves, I'm looking at this additional fuel for 30 minutes of flight at 4.4 metric tons, 4.5 metric tons, and our alternate, our airport alternate fuel of 3.9, which is giving us 12.3, technically 12.4, but 12.3 is plenty fine. But what I find in the 747-800 is, even though this is representative of the flight plan I filed with SimBrief, the plane initially, especially when we're climbing, will say that we have insufficient fuel based off of its calculations to meet our alternate airport reserve fuel as well as our additional 30 minutes of reserve fuel. You can disregard that. That kind of balances out once you get up into cruise. So that's correct. Our cruise flight level, according to the flight plan, if you look up here, right, single step, 3,700, so flight level 370 is correct. I'm going to go back here. So flight level 370. Our cost index is actually entered as 98 on the flight plan. It entered it as 100. I wonder if it'll let me change that. There's 2 scales for cost index, which just basically determines how fuel efficient your plane attempts to be. So it let me change it, so I went ahead and set it for 98 just so it matches my flight plan. And those are the things I wanted to check, so everything looks to be correct here now. We should be ready to move on from the flight management computer. Aircraft is fully loaded. We'll go back to our legs. Now we've got predictive speeds and altitudes at the various waypoints. And we'll continue with our setup. And we'll check our weather once we get closer to takeoff, just in case any of the settings change. So I'm going to walk through the checklist. First officer, I'm not going to call all these out. I'm just going to do them real quick here. We're going to get our flight director turned on. When I'm working with the ECAS page, I like to work with the first officer CDU. So to turn that off, we need to go back to menu. And I turn this off only so I can make one quick change up here to the navigation display on the first officer's terminal, and that simply is to hit this TFC button, which gives us our arc radials and indicates that TCAS is off. I really don't have any other settings I need to make up here on this side. I am going to turn on my floodlights up to about 10 o'clock. No other changes. Everything here is correct. Multifunction display is correct. All these other settings look good. We're already in rejected takeoff for the auto brakes, which is fine. No other changes here. We're not going to be using air traffic control, so I really don't need my radios to be on other than to get weather and check weather. We do want to go ahead and put in our transponder code. 2563 is what I've been flying with. I'm going to go ahead and put this to expander already. It's a little hard to see from this angle, so if I jump over to the other side, all I did is set it for this expander setting here at the gate. So I believe that's it. Let me just run down my check here. Since we're really close to taking off and pushing back, the first officer is going to also turn on the APU. So let's get that started up. And one really minor thing, just a quick spot check. Oxygen is good. Honestly, I'm doing that because I'm flying with failures. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't typically worry about that. Again, this is just a simulator. Take a quick look at our ECAS information. So we've got some warnings still. These are all normal. Brake source is down because we don't have any hydraulic pressure yet. Engines are obviously off. TCAS is off. Fuel M4 forward and aft. This is a new error message that I'm not sure what that is yet. We'll come back to that here in just a moment. Let's see what page 2 is. Why is it giving me these error messages? So the fuel pumps are currently off. We'll check those again once we get ready to start up the engines and I turn the fuel pumps on. We'll do the first officer's checks. Similar scenario for him, so flight director on, EPIS panel control. We're going to go ahead and hit the TFC button in the middle of the range dial. Gives our TCAS off indication, gives our radials on the navigation display. Go ahead and put in our barometric pressure. We have, for information, what was that, India 3013. You can see it down here, 3013, and that lines up with our current ground level altitude. I'm going to make sure that the auto thrust is armed. I'm going to put in our V2 speed into our speed setting, so 169. Our runway heading is down here. Runway heading 92 degrees, so we want to make sure that's up here and heading. And I haven't shown this yet. This is a great opportunity for us to take a look at our Navigraph map, if I could talk clearly. So we'll jump out here. Let me show you our flight. So here we have the Navigraph representation of our flight plan, which I've loaded up. It's the same flight plan loaded in the simulator, which reminds me I have one additional step to do. But from Miami down here to Trinidad and Tobago, we are landing on the island of Tobago. So pretty much a straight shot heading southeasterly direction, flying over San Juan, and then straight down to Trinidad and Tobago. Now, I wanted to come out here and show, zoom in here on Miami. I wanted to bring up our departure information, which is using a SID, skips 2, and we can bring up this chart overlay, this off the screen here. For our initial altitude, so departing out of the airport, using the skips 2 SID, we have information down here at the bottom for departing runway 8 right. We're going to climb heading 92 degrees to 520 feet and then right towards the VKZ VOR. And it says top altitude for our initial departure is 5,000. That's what we're going to program into the MCP. We'll maintain 5,000 until we get ATC guidance to change altitude, further clearance from them. We'll be flying on our own, so we'll stick to 5,000 until we get out here to about Ibis. And from Ibis, we'll probably start our climb up to our cruising altitude of 37,000. That's the plan I'm going with, so that's what I wanted to show and just kind of give you some understanding of why I'm doing some of the things that I'm doing and where this information is coming from. So let's go back into the flight simulator. We'll drop this down to 5,000. 5,000 is good. We just spot check the other things, right? The disengage lever is up. All the other settings, bank is set to auto. Everything looks fine here. Captain's oxygen mask test. Spot check our flight mode annunciator, so Toga Toga is correct. This is in the roll mode and pitch mode. So this is roll mode here in the middle, pitch mode to the right. Auto throttle will be blank. That is fine. Spot check our controls, so flaps are all the way up, speed brake is off, we're in idle, reversers are off, fuel cutoffs are in the correct position. Our brake is not set. We'll go ahead and turn that on right now, but recall we don't have any hydraulic pressure yet, so we haven't moved the wheel chocks, so we're good to go. We'll be activating that here momentarily. Now we'll go up and take a look at the APU, make sure it's started up. So the APU is on. I can kind of make that determination just by looking at the lights here for APU generator. Right now we're on external power. We're going to switch over to the APU. That's going to automatically turn off the external power connection. We're going to fire up both of those generators, so APU 1 and 2. And with the APU online, we'll turn on our packs. Go down and ask ground services to go ahead and disconnect the external air handler as well as the ground power. So release air conditioning. Go ahead and release ground power. Just about ready for pushback here. We want to do our pre-flight checklist. So, oxygen checked, check. Flight instruments, heading of, I didn't write it down, back to legs here. 09292 set for heading is correct. Our altimeter set for 3013, check. Parking brake is set. Fuel control switches are in a cutoff position. That checklist is complete. Now at this point, if we were flying with air traffic control, we'd get our IFR clearance. Go back, look up the MCP here real quick and activate or arm our lateral navigation and our vertical navigation. And this is where we would do our taxi and takeoff briefing, which I haven't fully got that worked out, but what we can cover is we will be taking off on runway 8 right. I'm the only pilot on board, so I'll be flying the aircraft. If we have any failure before V1, we will come to a full stop. After V1, in an extreme failure, we'll attempt to stop. But after rotate, we're going to be committed to the takeoff. And we will come back around and attempt to land at the airport in the event of an engine failure. Runway conditions are dry. Derated takeoff is in place. I don't have any other information that I need to really brief that I'm aware of, although I know there's a lot of other things that gets covered in this takeoff briefing. Well, we're gonna skip that for right now. Oh, brother! I'm trying to get this down. It's a lot of details. What can I say? It's a lot of details. Boarding is completed. Cargo load's completed. Exterior doors are closed. They should be armed and ready to go. We wanted to spot check them from the ECAS. All right, synaptics. The doors. There we go. Doors all closed. In preparation for startup, we've got APU on and power. We want to turn on the electrical power to pumps 4 and pumps 1. And we'll go ahead and put engines 2 and 3 pumps in the auto position. And get all of our fuel pumps turned on. I'm not turning off the override selections. Those don't need to be on. I previously turned off the cross feeds for 1 to 2 and 3 to 4. Those don't need to be on. It's actually cross feed between the outer main 1 and main 4 fuel tanks. If we go down and look at our ECAS display for fuel, basically I have no fuel in the center tank, so I don't need the center pumps to be on. And we look at the combination of main 1 and reserve, so we're at 10.1 versus 10, 10.1 versus 10. Therefore, I don't need this crossfeed valve to be closed, or to be open basically. It needs to be closed. So the engines are going to draw from pretty much an even amount of fuel per tank. You can see, so you know, engine 3 is using main 3, engine 4 is using main 4. So it's balanced across the wings of the plane. And with that in place, we shouldn't have any warnings, which we don't. Otherwise, we would have a fuel tank engine warning up here if this was unbalanced. So that's good to go. Getting ready to start up our engines. So Go ahead and get our beacon light active. This just gives an indication outside the aircraft to grounds crew that the engine's going to be starting up here shortly. If you're anywhere near the nacelle, get the hell away. Although interestingly, you know, we're going to be doing a pushback before we even attempt to start the engines. So I'm not sure. I guess it's a good warning anyway. I'm thinking too much entirely. There's a lot of processing that goes on trying to get this plane ready to go and follow these checklist items. And I'm purposely not trying to be too talkative, but man, I'm saying an awful lot, aren't I? Cancel recall. So we do have one warning down here. That's just the normal warning we get every time we control the ECAS display. Our EVIS control on the right is basically disabled because I've taken control of it from the right CDU. That's completely normal. With our hydraulic power turned on 4 and 1, we can set our stabilizer trim. We'll go back here and look at the init reference for takeoff. We have a recommended trim setting of 6.3, and up here we can see that currently our trim is set to 6.0. So we're going to bump that up to 6.3 using the control stick. Aileron trim and rudder trim set to 0. And here we can go back and now do our before start checklist. So passenger signs are not set. Let's drop down here and go ahead and get our seatbelt signs activated for any passengers who may be on board the aircraft. Even though this is a cargo plane. Alright, our MCP is set V2 at 169 knots, heading of 096, or is that 92? 092. Yeah, 092, altimeter 3013, and I said I was going to double check the weather, so we're going to do that right now before we move on.
Kilo Mike India Alpha airport information Kilo 1953 Zulu weather wind 097 at 11 gusting to 21 visibility 10 sky condition ceiling 5000 broken temperature 24 dew point 11 altimeter 30.
So we do have an updated report of Kilo, but none of the information has changed. Weather is still the same. So our altimeter is still set at 3013. Check. Takeoff speeds V1 148, rotate 148, and V2 at 169. Check that. CDU has been configured. That is completed. Trim is at 6.3 units for stabilizer trim, 0 elevator, 0 aileron trim. Check. Taxi and takeoff briefing, if you can call it that, has been completed, and the beacon is on in both positions. So checklist is complete. Good to go there. Go ahead and get ground services to remove our wheel chocks. We do have brake pressure, so our emergency brake should hold the plane steady. Go ahead and remove this. Transponder is already set for expander, and now we're going to request our pushback. Now, we want to take a look at where we're headed for the runway. Easiest way to do that, we have our moving map. We switch over to moving map here. And this is moving maps representation of the airport. So it's a little hard to see, but if I zoom in here, you can see the plane is parked up here at the FedEx cargo terminal. So we're going to back out and put the tail to the right and the nose to the left, and we're going to head down here to runway 8 right, which is this runway right here, or crossover 8 left. We'll get lined up on 8 right for takeoff. So short taxi. That's the plan. And basically I wanted to look at this just to figure out how I'm going to be pushing back from this ramp. Like, note to myself is simply nose left. Back to the aircraft here. I'll bring up, jump outside, kind of get in position so we can watch this pushback. Bring up GSX ground services and select pushback.
Hello, Captain. We're ready for pushback. Locking gear.
And our note to ourselves was nose left.
Departure check completed. Bypass pin inserted. Release parking brakes. Commencing push. All engines clear. Start at will.
Alright, and now we are clear to start the engines. We need to turn off 2 packs before we start the engine, so we'll drop 2 packs. We are now to start engine 4. Bring up our secondary engine display. Look at display, you can see auto start occurring above the engine N2 information. Watch indicators, everything is white or green, so no problems. And at the same time this is starting up, we do want to monitor our pushback. So engine 4 is running. Start engine 1. Engine 1 is starting up. We're in good shape, so we're going to go ahead and tell ground crew to stop where they are.
Set parking brakes.
So engine 1 is running. to start engine 2
Unlocking
and
gear.
3.
Tow truck disconnected. Bypass pin removed. Left is clear. Right is clear.
All right, grounds crew has cleared us left and right. A couple things to finish up on. So engine 2 is running, engine 3 is running. All 4 engines are started up. Everything appears to be good. We do, with the engines 1 and 4 started up, we need to switch the hydraulic demand pump from electric back to engine controlled. So we're going to go to auto there. We are no longer on APU power, so we can turn the APU off. And we want to turn our packs back on. Looks good. Go ahead and get our taxi lights on and our runway turn-off lights active. Going to turn on the wing light and the logo light. Go to some optics, get our flight control brought up. We're also going to bring our flaps to flaps 10, so flaps 10. You can see the flaps 10 indicator on the upper ECAS display. This will start to extend the flaps. While that's happening, we're going to check our flight controls, so full left aileron, right aileron, down elevator, up elevator, rudder left, rudder right. Looks good. Flight controls are in good shape. Go ahead and clear the lower display. Actually, before we do that, we're going to go back to status page, spot check our ECAS page, cancel recall. Everything appears to be good. Transponder we want to put to TARA. Now on the ground, it's only going to do TA only. You can verify that by looking at the navigation display. We can see TFC TA only. And before we get on our way, one last little check. We'll do the before taxi checklist. This EFIS control warning is completely normal. I've already talked about that, so you can ignore that. No anti-ice required today. Check. Recall has been checked. Auto brake is set for rejected takeoff. Check. Flight controls checked. Check. Ground equipment clear. Check. We are good to go. We'll clear the display. And we are ready to make our way to the runway. I like to come up here and just zoom in just a little bit. It makes it a little easier to see the taxi markings on the runway. Release the parking brake, and we're going to start moving towards the runway 8 right. As the plane gets going, we'll do a quick brake check. So brake check. Brakes are good. If you look over there to the right, you can see the UPS cargo warehouse with the UPS branded trucks. Again, a nice little touch to the update of this Miami airport, that they added that additional detail into the airport. We're going to cross over 8 left here and make our way to 8 right. No air traffic control and no air traffic to speak of. That's all been disabled in this flight simulator. So I'm not too concerned about crossing the path of another aircraft that might be coming in for landing. I look forward to adding those details back in at some point, but I don't really see that happening until probably the next Flight Simulator 2020, I guess it will be, comes out. So here comes 8 right. We're going to stop here.
8 right.
We're going to stop here at the hold short line. Spot check our checklist. So we don't have any weather to really be concerned about. We don't need the train display on. We do want to do our before takeoff checklist. Flaps are set to 10. That is good to go. Checklist is complete. Our transponder is already set correctly. We do need to go up here and turn on our landing lights, or takeoff lights. We'll put those in the on position. And we need to put our strobe on as well. And I'm noticing that it's a little dark on my side of the plane. Put our lights up here to 10 o'clock. That balances things out a little better. So we're about ready to go. We're going to get into position here on the runway.
On runway 08 right.
So we'll get out here and get just a little more center. Go ahead and get our engines up to about 40%. Gonna go ahead and hit our chrono, get it started. Airspeed's alive, go toga.
Airspeed's alive. Knots.
80 knots.
V1. Rotate.
Rotate.
V2. Positive rate of climb.
Gear up. Engage our autopilot. And departing Miami. Plane is already on autopilot. Gear is up. We going to go back in and watch our speed. Going to retract our flaps. One position. So back to flaps 5. Flaps 1. See the cruise ships down there? Such a great touch. It's incredible. This game is over 10 years old. Oops. And we are heading out to sea from Miami, Florida. Go back in and spot check our speed. Bring our flaps all the way in. Go up. So with the gear retracted, we can turn off the runway turn-off lights. Turn off the taxi lights. We can also jump over here and take a look. Let me just activate this real quick. Take a look at our Navigraph. It's got a cool little feature, right? We can follow our plane as it departs out of the follows the SID out of Miami. So here's our little indicator, and we said by the time we reach the Ibis waypoint, we're going to go ahead and tell the aircraft to start climbing up to 37,000 feet. So right now it's up to 5,000. We're already there. Back to the aircraft. There is Miami. So far the weather looks clear, but I'm reminded that there was one step that I actually forgot to do. We'll do that here in just a moment. So let's go back and check our checklist. So after takeoff, landing gear is up, flaps are fully up, so that checklist is complete. We're going to push our altitude up to our cruising altitude of 37,000. The plane's going to start to climb, and while it does that, I need to put my flight plan. Need to load up my flight plan so that Active Sky gives us real-time weather en route to Trinidad and Tobago. So it should be this one right here, correct? So we'll load that up. No, we're not going to relocate the aircraft. We're just going to confirm that that's actually in the Active Sky. So if we go to flight plan, it should pick up, yep, we're en route to Trinidad and Tobago. Current conditions, partly cloudy skies, everything looks good, matches up. Alright, we're in good shape. 6,400 feet and climbing. Everything appears to be pretty much normal. overhead. Once we reach 10,000 feet, we will turn off the landing lights. No other warnings, no other lights, so nothing to be concerned about up here. We want to do heading to course, which is 109. We need to adjust this to 109. Heading to course check. Go back here and look at Navigraph. See, we are about to cross the Krabby waypoint. It's, airport is good. We'll zoom out here a little bit and go ahead and turn off the SID. Zoom out here a little bit more, and now we've got a fairly long trek heading out of Miami. Down here, crossing over the Bahamas. Further south, we'll be going over top of the Turks and Caicos Islands. Down here over San Juan, Puerto Rico, and then on down to Trinidad and Tobago. So we've got quite the trek. We are climbing up to our cruising altitude. 37,000 feet. We are flying with failures, so anything could go wrong. If something does go wrong, I'll be sure to come back and put that up so we can record it and kind of work through that. I got to tell you that I haven't really experienced a failure in flight yet. I'm looking forward to that happening because who knows how I'll end up handling that. Basically, autopilot, we're on cruise mode. We'll just monitor instrumentation, spot check all of our settings. In fact, we'll just do a quick check while I've got you here. So we'll go to our synoptics. Confirm that electrical is all good. We're getting electric from the engine. No issues there. Easier to control from the center. Hydraulics. Right, hydraulics is good. Aux is off on 1 and 4. Fuel is progressing normally, no issues. Environmental control, 24 degrees Celsius is our middle of the road temperature. Packs are all on. Gear is up with no issues. Everything appears to be fine. Doors are closed, no problem. So, seatbelts are on. That is one thing I can change. The other thing that I can do, let's go down here and put seatbelts to auto. I have a tendency to forget that quite often. And now that we are over 10,000 feet, you can also turn off the landing lights. Heading to course again, 111. Take a quick look outside. The water looks great. Clear skies. Hopefully we're going to have clear skies most of the way down to Trinidad and Tobago. Don't do that. Scattered broken clouds behind us. So here we are, FedEx Express, taking a bunch of curved monitors down to Tobago. And we need to change our altimeter setting to standard. Go back out here. So yeah, we're flying a bunch of curved monitors down at Trinidad and Tobago for Jason. He's got more money than he knows what to do with, so he's bought monitors for all his friends. Looking forward to getting down there. Hopefully the weather is clear. Can't wait to show you the airport. I've actually got a custom airport for Trinidad and Tobago as well, and it looks like the real thing. Whoever created this airport, they did truly an incredible job. So that's it for right now. This is the start of our leg down to Trinidad and Tobago. I'm Liam Locke. You're on Liam Locke Gaming. I do appreciate you coming and watching these videos. These videos aren't meant to be tutorials, but if I taught you something, hey, I think that's great. Do me a favor and click the like button if you enjoyed this video. And if you want to see more, come back and, or I should say, click the subscribe button and then come back. My next flight that I've got lined up is going to be a good one. We're going to be flying from El Salvador International Airport to is it Toncontin International Airport? Anyway, that is a difficult landing. I'll tell you more about it on that particular flight, but come back and check out that flight next. We'll be flying in the smaller Airbus A319 or A320 for that particular flight. But thanks for watching, and we will see you for the arrival into Tobago here in just a little bit. See ya.